you guys have this client, right? Coach, I missed my calories. I went way over because I didn't have my food and I couldn't get it, you know? How do you coach somebody through that? Hopefully they're not there, right? Because you've already taught them about the nutritional stuff that you talked about, Brian. But, you know, what do you tell this person?
I mean, in your scenario, it's like, okay, are there if there's alternatives on hand that they didn't know were viable alternatives, you know, I think it's definitely worth asking, like, okay, this is a good teaching moment for, you know, what is inherently special? Like, why do you have this belief, you know, that this is what you have to have? And then, you know, kind of work backwards from there. But, you know, it's funny because I find I'm having a similar conversation with individuals who it's like they try to make each day different than the previous, you know? So it's like, okay, you can have the same thing on back-to-back days. Like you're going to be okay. But yeah, I think for me, I think that's mostly an issue of education, or if they don't have something on hand, like just lack of preparation, you know, and just planning ahead. So, you know, encouraging them to set time aside, you know, a week before they know they're going to be out of groceries to make sure they have a comprehensive list of, you know, what you would need to have a few options for each meal on hand, you know, and to go from there. But, I mean, I've been there too, Brad. I mean, like Berto was mentioning, like we did the old, Civation cut diet, you know, from like 2007, 2008. And I mean, that was about as like restrictive as you could get, but in different ways. Like you were like every 18th meal was, I mean, it was like almonds,
raisins,
sweet potato is like almonds, sweet potato, and a grapefruit. But the kicker was you shouldn't drink water.
The grapefruit. I remember the grapefruit. Yes.
So like, you know, then I'm thinking like, you know, shit, I'm really thirsty right now. Like I'm, you know, about 200 carbs deep on this meal, and like I feel like I'm gonna choke to death. So like that was just a lack of education, you know, and I think as soon as, like, for me, that remedied the situation. It's like once I just simply learned more about nutrition, and I think that's the case in that scenario, the case for a lot of people.
On that note, just kind of like, these are all things we do take care of, like, before, you know, like I want them to, like, I think you should eventually get to the point where, especially if you're a male and you have a few more calories to work with, like you should be able to go out and eat on the weekends with your family. Like it should be to that point. Like 3 weeks, you know, like before Worlds, it's like Halloween, you know, we're in Canada, but like me and Cynthia, it's like we had to go to some really nice restaurant at that, a little bit of tequila. And like I had to do, like I wanted to, and like it made the whole sporting experience that much more special to me in a way, you know, like, so yeah. And this starts with like trial runs where it's like, all right, go to a restaurant. Oh shoot. Okay. You ate like a whole appetizer, your meal, some like your friend's meal and the dessert. Okay, let's do better. And you work from there basically, you know, and you kind of, I think it's so important to like learn to, you know, control what you can, but sometimes you kind of have to go with the flow with it. Like it's going to happen at some point. You wake up like the morning of a show and you're like, oh, I look not how I expected. And how much we can correct that has a lot to do with like how you're able to, I guess, be like water and flow with the situation. So yeah, like you want to be prepared, but to like, shoot, assume you can have absolute control over this thing all the time. Like, no way, man. But yes, Brad. Well, I guess what was the other scenario?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, you took the thunder away from me. That was kind of my next scenario that I wanted to kind of throw at you. Is that, you know what, we've got Grandma's birthday coming up, you know, and we've got all this home cooked food. There's no way that I'm going to be able to know, you know, what the calories are. But at the same time, I don't want to piss off Grandma and my aunts and uncles and everything, you know. And I'm going to be there for like 3-4 days, you know. How do I get me through this, Coach? What do I need to do, you know? Yeah. So not so much the going out, but you know, let's talk about grandma's food that the aunts and uncles are cooking.
Yeah, you know, at a certain point, like, you know, whatever your timeline is, that's your timeline, and this is definitely something like I I expect from my athletes who do compete or are very close to getting to that point where it's like, you have a vacation, we have a fat loss phase, we'll keep losing fat. Like, it shouldn't even be that much of an issue, you know? Right? Or you should continue to be able to gain responsibly, like through the holidays. It's like come on, like realistically, like if I did my job and we have all our like fundamentals in order and you understand the basic principles of nutrition and you understand yourself, like it shouldn't be an issue. Like what's on tap shouldn't be an issue. And again, super important, because what are you going to do? Like disconnect from life like every like other year that you decide to compete? Like, that's not living, man. Like, I wouldn't compete if not at this point, like if that were the case. And I think sometimes when I say that, or when I, people see that I'm going on a dinner date or things like that, they think, oh, that's special to him because of X and Y reason. And like, no, like everyone should be able to do this. Like, especially if you compete, like it's hard enough as is. Like, why add unnecessary hardships to the equation? So yeah, at the end, like this whole nutrition thing, it's kind of like when you hear like really rich folks talk about wealth, and it's like, fuck, they understand this game so freaking well. And when you really understand like your bodybuilding, like fat loss and muscle gain, like they're pretty freaking passive activities that, like, I mean, you don't have to water a plant and like stay there and watch it grow. It's like, that's exactly what it feels like. You take care of the prerequisites and then that's it. So yeah, that's the goal, to get people to that point where, okay, other than like we feel a little bit shittier because we're going to an unnecessary level of leanness, like for the most part, you can partake in like most of the other, I think, more important parts of life.
Yeah, that's spot on. I think another thing that a lot of people in these scenarios don't do is let their loved ones in on kind of what they're doing. Like, talk to grandma about it. Like, tell her that this is something I'm excited about, that I'm, training for. And, it like in many cases, if you just don't bring it up and not eat their food, yeah, that's how you're going to offend grandma. So, but if you have the support, like, okay, hey grandma, this is what I'm working on. Like, I might not eat as much as I normally do this week. Like that should be a non-issue. And if it's not, then that's something like maybe, or if it is an issue, then that goes deeper than just the fact that you're dieting for a show, and like that should be addressed, personally. So, so it's like you're trying not to offend them, but in your mind they're like already undermining your goals, So I think that's something that can be prevented. I mean, the situation itself might not be able, we don't want to prevent it. Like, we want to be able to spend time with loved ones, but it makes it a hell of a lot harder if you go in, like, I'm just going to be low key in the background. I'm just not going to eat, like, be excited. Like, you don't have to get people yeah, it's awkward, like talking people about, to people about bodybuilding that have like no idea, and like, I think I've told Berto this once before, but like I was at my in-laws house, and she had some of her extended family over there. This was like in 2017 prep. And, her family knew, like my in-laws knew I was prepping, and like, wasn't a big deal. But like one of her relatives, came up to me and like had heard, that I was prepping for this show, and like they just wanted to relate, He's like, so you're doing a bodybuilding show? And I said, yeah. And so he's like, so you're probably caught up in the latest season of American Ninja Warrior then. I guess, like, that not at all the same, but like, I mean, people, they think it's cool. Like, it's something they haven't learned about before, and so it gives you an opportunity to educate them on it. And I mean, any topic that you're not well versed in, if you approach somebody and ask them about it, like, you're going to be a sponge, So it gives you an opportunity to, talk about it with people too. So just let it be known, have the conversation beforehand, practice moderation. I mean, you don't have to, like, it's not like you have some of her casserole, it's going to be the end of the world,
Yeah.
Like, budget for it, estimate for it, like don't eat to satiety based off of just
Yep.
you know, like creamy casseroles. Like you can do a lot. Like you can still absolutely make headway on, you know, family trips and vacations if it's at a point in prep where you need to do it.
And as much as grandma know about cooking, like you should know enough about nutrition that like you can edge out like even like someone super grandma out there. It's like you should be able to like identify what's going on in the situation and maneuver correctly and you know, like be fly with it. If you can't do that, like you really don't know a whole lot about nutrition, and like should you be prepping like is probably something
that
like,
level
worth
of
mentioning.
pliability is necessary.